All right, it looks like our join rate is steadying out. So, welcome to today's webinar, Mountains to Sea Tourism in North Carolina. We are grateful to have the Alumni Association for their partnership in making this event possible. I'm Jennifer Piercy, the Assistant Dean of Philanthropy for the College of Natural Resources and a proud NC State alumna. Our college is the top ranked program and public school for studying natural resources and conservation in the Southeast, with nationally recognized programs across three departments and a center. As a land grant institution, NC State places a great deal of emphasis on extension, with a goal of extending research-based solutions to every corner of North Carolina, which includes all 100 counties and the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. If you live in North Carolina, then you have an extension agent right in your backyard. Every county has an office with staff expertise in areas such as agriculture and horticulture, family and consumer sciences, and community development. And they are there and available to help you learn and access useful resources. Here in the College of Natural Resources, we have extension staff and faculty in each of our departments. Specifically, in our Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Management Department, which we call PRTM, we have faculty and students leading teaching, research, and extension efforts that help communities build thriving, sustainable tourism enterprises. And you will hear from a few of them today. Our hope is that you leave with a clear view of our current work and our future vision to keep North Carolina a top destination for tourism while supporting environmental, economic, and community sustainability. Couple of housekeeping items first. Please engage in the chat. Our experts are on hand to answer your questions. And at the end of the webinar, we will announce giveaway prizes. You must be present to win and have engaged in the chat. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Whitney Nolenberg, Associate Professor in Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Management, and our Tourism Department Extension Leader to kick things off. Thanks, Whitney.
All right, Jennifer, thank you so much. And folks, we are so delighted to have you with us here today. Thanks for joining us on your lunch hour. If you are tucking into your lunch, I hope you have something delicious in front of you. We are going to kick things off today with a little bit of engagement. So you can find that chat. This is a great place to get your name in there. So you're entered for those swag drawings that Jennifer just mention. So tell us, where do you love to visit in North Carolina? You can drop that in the chat. We've already got some folks in there. Thank you, Janice, Derek. I love it. Mountains, beach, and as you can see today, thank you, everyone. So many good thoughts in here. We are loving everything from the mountains, the high country, Boone, Asheville, to the Piedmont. We've got beautiful places all across the central part of our state as well as the coast. So thank you all for dropping those in the chat. We're going to probably mention some of those places that you love to visit in our conversation today. As Jennifer said, our team serves all 100 counties of North Carolina and partners with the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians as well. So no matter where you love to visit in North Carolina, we are partners with the folks working on tourism development there. So keep dropping those in the chat as you're joining us, but I'm going to move on to some fun facts for tourism to kind of set the stage of why this topic is so important for us to talk about today. So to get us started, this is a rhetorical question. You don't have to put this in the chat, but what do you think these states, California, Florida, Texas, and New York, have in common? And I'll let you think on that for just a little bit of time here before I drop the reveal that these are our top 4 visited states in the US. And the cliffhanger here that I know you're all waiting for is we here in the Old North State are the 5th most visited state in the country. We welcome over 40 million visitors every year. And that is a really, really impressive feat. We actually have some of our folks from Visit NC on the call with us today. So, them and all of our partners working really hard across the state to promote North Carolina as a place to visit are doing a great job. They're bringing in a lot of visitors and they bring a lot of impacts to our communities all across the state. So, what does tourism as a whole mean to North Carolina? A few things that you may not know. First of all, we employ in this industry over 230,000 people. Those folks could fill Carter Finley Stadium 4 times over. So, next time you're in Carter Finley cheering on our Wolfpack, look around you and know that 4 times over that stadium could be filled with the people who work in the tourism industry across our state. They're earning over $9.5 billion in payroll. So not only is this a lot of people, but they're earning a considerable amount of money, which they can then reinvest back into the North Carolina economy. And our tourists are contributing over $100 million every single day in North Carolina. So hopefully that sets the stage for you all to understand that tourism is really, really important to North Carolina. It is, in fact, our #1 service industry. And all of that is built upon really incredible natural and cultural resources. There are a lot of states that have great mountains. There are a lot of states that have great beaches, but North Carolina has both. And in the middle, we have incredible rural communities, thriving metropolitan areas, and cultural resources all across the state that really attract people, whether that's our arts, our theater, our music, our beer, our food. We've got it all here in North Carolina. And all of that is our responsibility in the tourism industry to steward and take good care of so that we can maintain or maybe even get a little bit higher in those rankings of visitation, but more importantly, support the people of North Carolina and the communities that tourism is a part of. So, tourism is a very, very people intensive industry. Think about any time you take a trip, right? You're probably seeing someone at your lodging establishment, whether that's a hotel or bed and breakfast. You're seeing folks out when you go shopping. They're helping you find that amazing locally made good. They're perhaps meeting you at a farmer's market. And you've got folks who are, of course, running all of our amazing food and beverage experiences that we have across the state. That's just scratching the surface. There's a lot of other people who work in the support industries for tourism as well. And we're going to give you some highlights today of different places where we as Tourism Extension help to support these people that make all of those amazing impacts that you just saw actually happen. So, if we have an industry like tourism, which is thriving here in the state of North Carolina, that employs over 230,000 people across our state, where does North Carolina State University fit into that? Well, we have 3 very important jobs. First of all, as Jennifer mentioned, we're all a part of the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Management. That is the entity that's responsible for ensuring that we are preparing the next generation of our tourism industry leaders. We're training those who are going to go out into the world and be entrepreneurs, or they're going to work in some of our destination marketing organizations. They're going to be coming up with all the great new experiences and ideas that people enjoy in North Carolina. And it's our job to make sure that they're thinking about the importance of those natural resources. That's why we're in the College of Natural Resources, as well as the cultural resources that make tourism thrive here. Faculty in the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Management also are conducting innovative and cutting edge research to ensure that we are using the best practices and knowledge to make decisions around tourism in the state. And that's really where the third part, the extension part of our work comes in. And that's going to be our focus today. So, tourism extension, we are part of the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service. So, here at NC State, as well as NCA&T, our land grant mission, as Jennifer mentioned at the top, is to extend that knowledge that all of our faculty here at NC State create and bring it out, extend it to the people of North Carolina. And we do that for tourism. You may have heard about extension working in agriculture or nutrition, family sciences, but we are really unique that here in North Carolina, we have a service dedicated to tourism through extension. Not every state has that. Not every state has the ability to connect as well with the university system as our tourism industry here in North Carolina does. So we're sharing that research, best practices, new knowledge, making sure that our tourism industry is thriving and innovative. And our mission is to bring together individuals and communities to develop healthy, prosperous, and enduring tourism enterprises and destinations. So, working hand in hand, we have a team of really fabulous folks, one of which is myself. I'm our department extension leader for tourism extension, as well as an associate professor in the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Management. I also want to highlight Dr. Carla Barbieri, who is another tourism extension specialist and professor in the Department of Parks, Recreation, Tourism Management. Her work focuses largely on agritourism. I'll explain a little bit more about that in a moment. But I want to turn it over to some of our other fabulous panelists and tourism extension members that we have on the call today. Anne, why don't you jump in with an introduction for us?
Sure thing, Whitney. Hi, y'all. I'm Ann Savage. I'm our Tourism Extension Associate, so I'm 100% extension, working out in the counties. All that's what my job is. Duarte?
Hello, everybody. I'm Duarte Moraes. I'm a tourism professor and also a tourism extension specialist. I focus on how local people can be involved in small tourism businesses to make their destinations more competitive, more authentic, and to make sure that the communities earn a fair share of the tourism economy. Next to me, it's Abby.
Hi everyone, my name is Abby Kidder. I'm an undergraduate senior in Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Management. I have been involved with P1T and the lab for pretty much the entire time I've been here at NC State. I'm also a research assistant for Whitney and Anne on some other projects.
Awesome. Thanks for the introductions. And folks, you will get to hear from them all here in just a minute. But let me talk you through some of the impact areas of focus for tourism extension. This is going to help you kind of get an understanding of the breadth of topics that we are able to help our tourism industry members with. First, we'll start with agritourism. This is a major part of the work that we do. If you have ever gone to a pumpkin patch, a U-pick orchard, any of those are examples of agritourism. And we have a lot of farmers, a lot of producers in the state who are coming up with really unique and incredible experiences that you could only get in North Carolina. And that's what we want to see. So a lot of the work that we do through tourism extension to support those farmers is through creating resources to make sure that they can safely welcome people onto their farms, that they are creating really unique experiences that stand out. And a lot of the work that Dr. Carla Barbieri does is focusing on how they can make sure those experiences generate more knowledge or better practices in terms of local food purchasing among their visitors. So they may have a fabulous time picking strawberries at a farm, and that kind of sparks an interest in finding more local food for them next time they go to a grocery store. So agritourism is a really powerful tool for accomplishing a lot of things beyond just bringing in more revenue for our farmers. Destination development is another area of focus for us. So we work with many different communities across the state to help ensure they are creating unique and sustainable experiences for visitors. That may look like working with the First Impressions program, which is a way we have to kind of do almost a secret shopper kind of experience for communities where people will bring in a group of folks who haven't visited before and let them know what is great, what is maybe some areas that could be improved. And it's just a really good way to ensure that that first impression that folks are getting of your community, whether they're a tourist or someone who's maybe looking to move there, are really great and helping to make thriving communities. Destination leadership is another area of focus for us. This is really emphasizing the individuals who are helping to create a thriving tourism industry across our state. They have a lot of decisions to make, so we're always trying to provide useful resources for them that are backed in data and good research to help inform the decisions that they make for their communities. Lastly, I'll do a very brief highlight of People First Tourism because Abby and Duarte are going to give you a really good example of the incredible work that they do. This is a program that is focused on supporting farmers and artists all across the state to create those unique experiences for our visitors and residents. So now you kind of have a sense of where our strengths and our programs lie. And I hopefully impressed upon you that tourism is a really important part of North Carolina, not just for those great economic impacts that it brings for us, but it's also a great tool for protecting our natural and cultural resources, putting a lot of value on those, and of course, empowering our communities to share the things that they are really proud of, and to preserve and protect those aspects of their community. Um, so all that sounds great, and you're probably wondering, well, then why are we here? The sort of theme of this is challenges in tourism. Well, I may have painted a really rosy picture for you, and I am an optimist by nature, but there are a lot of things that are challenging for our tourism industry here in North Carolina. We love it, we want it to thrive, but there are some uphill battles that we're fighting to make sure that we continue to thrive and have a robust tourism industry across the state. And that goes from the individual level all the way up to our community levels. So in order to be able to kind of give you a sense of what some of those specific challenges are, we're going to hear from first from Anne, and then from Duarte and Abby, and then myself. And we're each going to kind of take a different region of the state to highlight a challenge that we as Tourism Extension are helping to address to ensure that tourism continues to thrive in our state. So I'm going to turn it over to Anne. You ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go.
All right, you're in charge of the slides, don't forget. So, probably not shocking to anyone when we talk about challenges, and I was given the mountains, that Helene is what we're going to discuss as the challenge for the mountains. Obviously, we had a very big storm last fall, and from a tourism perspective, it happened right at the beginning of our leaf season. So that end of September into October is really the biggest time for visitation in our mountain region, and the biggest share of visitation for the fall across the state, really. And so I put this number here just to kind of give you a reference for how impactful Helene was to our tourism industry, specifically Buncombe County estimated their tourism losses for Q4 to be $585 million. And so that's $585 million that didn't go into the county, that didn't go towards those small businesses that rely on it, that didn't go to the workforce or community funds that they support. But that's just Buncombe County, right? We know that the storm impacted a lot more than that. It cut off tourism for a long period of time. And thankfully, our partners at Visit NC, I have this map here, they did an incredible job trying to communicate in real time when updates were happening. People could get to certain places and couldn't get to certain places. But the scale of the storm was really overwhelming. So we know that our further western counties actually didn't have a lot of significant damage from Helene, but people didn't want to come because they were nervous that they did. So the scale of the impacts is really difficult to maneuver for different places around the western part. And we also know, when we think about our tourism workforce in particular and the scale of impacts, I was talking to some of our county extension directors who had workforce in Cherokee or Macon County that weren't impacted by the storm, but they work in Asheville for the tourism industry, and they weren't able to work, but they weren't able to access some of the benefits from FEMA because they weren't in a county that had a disaster. So we were trying to work through what resources existed out there in those sort of circumstances. And then just to take a lens back and kind of look at this in the overall perspective of what we're seeing with disasters that are happening these days. The National Center for Environmental Information has been collecting information on disasters that rank as $1 billion or higher in damage since the 1980s. And they've, on average, had about 9 per year annually of those $1 billion disasters. But in the last 5 years, that number has skyrocketed to 23. So when I'm looking at this with Tourism Extension, with our other partners, we're saying this is really where our role is. We should be looking at how we can make sure we're supporting our destinations to make sure they're prepared for what likely could happen in their communities, and they're preparing their tourism stakeholders and visitors for this sort of scenario. All right, next slide, Whit. Thank you. So the first thing we tried to do, or the first thing that we naturally did after Helene hit, was we reached out to our contacts in the western part of the state to see how they were, to see how their staff were, and then to ask what sort of resources they need. We know that we're with an institution, like Whitney said. Part of working in a research institution and being with Extension is saying, okay, we have educational resources. Let's figure out how we can get those to you. Or we have researchers that potentially could benefit you. And so the first thing that came up was a lot of gaps in needs, particularly around small businesses as they responded to the disaster. I was reaching out to colleagues in Maine and Vermont and Kentucky who had been through recent situations as well to see if they had resources. And we found a lot of places where we need to kind of work together to fill some of those gaps. But also, I think one of the most inspiring things about Helene was seeing how creative the response to it was. We had a lot of different innovative ways to support those small businesses, those artists, those communities, especially as they went into the holiday season. And so we wanted to make sure we're capturing that and thinking about ways that potentially destination organizations can think ahead on some of that. So I like to think of the Love Asheville from Afar campaign, which is where they set up an e-commerce site to really highlight the different businesses or artists that were closed, so people could go shopping there for their holiday gifts. I bought all my holiday gifts from places that were listed on there. And so thinking about how we can potentially take that lesson of how to have e-commerce training for your partners in the region, or how the destination itself can have some sort of e-commerce setup. I know that Haywood TDA did a great job of setting up some sort of e-commerce to raise money. There was a lot of great ideas that were had throughout that process. And here, yes, we're shouting out Chimney Rock. Our friends in Chimney Rock have had a lot of opportunity to be innovative and get information from the locals. So all of this information we're putting together in a guidebook and a training for destination leaders and destination organizations. So that's what, when we're thinking about this challenge, it's how can we better prepare our destinations for these sorts of situations coming up, or for these sorts of situations that might happen to the destinations near them. And a big thing here is making sure they understand what their role could be within their local emergency management before a disaster happens, so that they can best support their tourism stakeholders, their small businesses, their workforce, their community members, but also their visitors. They have a specific expertise and skill set that is unlike anything anybody else has in the community. So making sure they're leveraging that as a part of that larger emergency management role is important. And so with this in mind, I'm trying to frame this training with a solutions-based approach. Obviously, when you start talking about disasters, it can get very daunting and people they get overwhelmed easily and you don't necessarily want to think about it. So thinking about kind of the creativity of the staff, what they love to do, what they love about their destination, and thinking about what sort of solutions they can set in motion before something like this happens. So if it does happen, there's at least less of a fully kind of coming up with things off the fly. It won't have all the solutions, but at least folks will have some ideas of things that they can put into practice when it happens. Next slide, Whitney. And so the next steps for this is the guide and the training should be completed by the end of the year. And then next year, we're hoping to pilot it with some destination organizations, some regions. We'll see. That's to be determined. But if you're interested, I'm sure our information is listed somewhere after this. So feel free to reach out and I'll think about how we can work with that. But we're also thinking about other opportunities. So we're working on some virtual opportunities to just better connect our destination organizations with our disaster and hazard resources. So not even if there's anything formal that's done there, at least you know what exists in the region or the state or nationally, so that you can either reach out to them before, maybe there's an impending something coming and you can reach out about what you should do in that case, or perhaps there's some training or professional development opportunities that are available there. But just having those connections is really what we want to see between our destination organizations and these disaster and hazard sort of resources that exist. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Duarte Moraes, who I know has done extensive work to support Rutherford County He's been working in Rutherford for a long time, but he's done a lot of work post-Helene to help that community. But you're going to get to hear a little bit from the side before Helene, I think, here. So
Thanks, Anne. Okay, yeah, so Abby and I will be talking to you about the work we do, research, and working with communities to help develop hyperlocal tourism experiences. These are things you can't just have an outside investor build an attraction because it doesn't make it really, really a local unique thing. So what I wanted to ask you is if you could do a shout out to something, an experience you've had in North Carolina that helped you understand the local culture. And you saw that the person, the artist, the farmer, the maker, was passionate about what they were sharing with you. And it created a unique memory that can't be replicated in our competitor 4 states, in Texas and New York and California and Florida. Only in North Carolina could you have something so amazing. Okay. And so what we found is that when communities have a lot of these unique, genuine things to do, then a lot of the locals are tapping into the tourism industry, and the destination is competitive and genuine and vibrant, and the local people are kind of owning and controlling a little bit how tourism develops in their community. So, Whitney, one more slide. So, essentially, I like to explain that tourism is like fire. If you leave the fire unattended, it'll burn your house down. But if you know how to harness its power, you can cook nice meals and warm up your family. So tourism is like that. When tourism is just left to its own accord, then outsiders move in. They take advantage of the amenities that make our communities special and desirable places to live. And they transform it, they make it crowded and fake, and we all end up losing. But when tourism is developed thoughtfully, then the local community has opportunities to earn a better livelihood, bring value to the land, to sustain their farmland, for example, to make their main streets more vibrant. And then the visitors also enjoy to come because a good place to live is a nice place to visit. All right. So with this in mind, Whitney, if you want to flip another one. 15 years ago, we started a lab at NC State focused on studying these things. And specifically, we study these local people that decide to be involved in offering experiences and interacting with visitors to share their culture and to earn some income. We call them, nerdy professors, we call them micro-entrepreneurs. And these are those artists, creatives, makers, farmers that own and manage very small businesses and make our destinations absolutely unique and genuine. And you can see in this picture, this was from the end of the semester from a little gathering from our lab. It has faculty from across campus and students from across campus. So I'm going to pass it over to Abby, who's one of the best and brightest in the lab. And she's going to talk to you about the specific study that she's been pursuing. And each of these people in the picture, they pursue their own little studies related always to understanding micro-entrepreneurs. So let's hear Abby.
Hi everyone, I'm really excited to get to talk to you guys today about the work I've been doing with P1T for quite a while now. Before I really get into it though, I kind of want to start you off with some concepts and ideas that I've been focusing on while with P1T. The first one is social capital. You can see here quality and quantity of relationships. I think a really simple way to approach this is it's not what you know, it's who you know. While with P1T, I was able to read a lot of literature about social capital, about micro-entrepreneurs, and I learned 2 main things that in most cases, or a lot of cases, the agencies that are meant to support micro-entrepreneurs are often unable to provide specific and relevant support to them. And then that in terms of partnership building and networking, micro-entrepreneurs often approach it or with people that are close to them or very similar to them. So those bridging ties that are more formal, you can think contractual, are not often used by micro-entrepreneurs. The second one here is permatourism, which is a destination management framework that states that in order to have a competitive and sustainable destination that having collaboration across many zones. You can see to the right over here, we have zone 0 through 4 that capture all of the people involved in tourism on a small or large scale. And only whenever people are connected across these zones are you going to be able to have a great destination. So the purpose of my study is examining how social capital and networking strategies are used by creatives, growers, and urban and rural micro entrepreneurs. So P1T, in regards to methods, takes a longitudinal approach to the study of micro entrepreneurs. I don't just go in and interview people and leave. We mentor them, we support them, we work with them, and then we do periodic interviews. So we're able to see changes over times, and then I am able to talk about my experiences with these micro entrepreneurs in these interviews in weekly lab meetings with Duarte. And not only is it longitudinal, but it's also action-based. So the information that we learn in the lab, we're able to apply and work with communities and make a difference. Like I'm doing here today with you guys, students are able to pursue individual research projects. It kind of starts with immersing yourself in P1T practice, learning what it's all about, helping out maybe in like marketing efforts or event creation, and then immersing oneself in scientific literature. And then you also get access to secondary data that like students in the past have collected. And then my specific research project was funded by an alumni-funded grant, which was the CNR Terry Student Fund. And then I also plan to access more alumni-funded things like the undergraduate mini grant that's here at NC State. For my study specifically, I used 4 free listing questions for within an interview protocol. I accessed 23 pre-existing from previous students' interviews, and then conducted 9 of my own across North Carolina. You can see on the map to the right over there, the various places that I went and met people. In terms of analysis, I approached it thematically. So once I started doing my interviews, I would pull out things that people kept repeating. I was able to tally them in my little green notebook here that you guys can maybe see if it's not blurry. And then talk about them with Duarte in the lab meetings that we have weekly. In terms of findings, I want to share 3 with you guys today. This study is ongoing, but the first one I wanted to share with you was that micro entrepreneurs did not identify anchor attractions as helpful or supportive to their business. So if you want to think anchor attractions like Carowinds, like those huge visitor pools that bring people to a destination, micro entrepreneurs that I interviewed did not state that they were working with these people or that they were able to benefit from the visitors that they bring in. Out of the 32 participants that I had, only 1 mentioned support from an anchor attraction, which was the Blue Ridge Parkway. The second one is that unclear regulations are often key constraints to micro entrepreneurs, partnerships, and networking efforts. So as we've said, micro entrepreneurs run very, very small businesses. This means that they don't have huge HR and tons of resources to know what is available for them to do, or maybe who is supposed to support them. So the local government might not be able to access them because they don't even know who to reach out to. And then the third one here is that urban micro entrepreneurs reported lots of connections to local government, but did not identify them as networking support. So while there is a lot of awareness of who is supposed to support them, they don't often utilize it. And that's going to be something that I really focus on in the next phase of my study, is how urban and rural local governments support the micro entrepreneurs in their destination. Like I said earlier, P1T is an action-based research initiative. So I want to give you a few examples of how they work with their destinations. P1T helps TDAs, so tourism development authorities or destination marketing organizations, recruit and mentor creatives and farmers, those micro entrepreneurs, onto their boards so that they have a voice in determining the legislation and regulations that affect their small businesses. P1T also is able to co-organize networking events. We call them rendezvous, with local tourism micro entrepreneurs. So not only are there micro entrepreneurs there, but we bring in local government officials and people from the formal tourism sector, like restaurants, hotels, to facilitate that connection across zones that we mentioned in when I was explaining permatourism earlier. And then obviously I get to share my findings and experiences here with you guys. So I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Nolenberg.
All right, Abby, thank you so much. Before I move on to my slides, I just want to give a shout out to Abby Duarte. Thank you so much for bringing her in to share that experience, folks. What she just shared, this is what it's all about to be at NC State, to be a student at NC State, and to have the opportunity to work with faculty like Dr. Moraes and folks like Anne. That's what really makes this place special. And speaking as a faculty member who gets to work with Abby sometimes, but has also gotten to work with a lot of other students, that is really the most rewarding part of this work. I love working with our tourism partners, but it's really a win for me when I can see someone like Abby learning from our tourism partners like she's been learning from them through her work with P1T. So another chance to drop something in the chat, a shout out to Abby for being awesome. And I appreciate you sharing your experience, Abby, with the Terry Enrichment Fund. That's a really good opportunity for our students in CNR to get experiences like the research work that Abby has done. So, with that, folks, I know we're getting into that time of lunch where we're maybe about ready to jump onto our 1 o'clock or finishing things up. We've just got one more challenge to share with you all, and that is on the coast. And I saw a lot of folks in the chat sharing how much they loved our coastal destinations, whether that's Kerala, which is actually where I'm coming to you from right now. So, all of my Kerala folks, Currituck County lovers. I saw the Grandy horse experiences. I saw the off-road 4x4 experiences on the beaches. I am just down the road from that right now, and I've been able to do a lot of work all across the Outer Banks here in the northern part, but down through Dare County and Hyde County and Ocracoke as well, through the work that I've done with Tourism Extension. So I feel really fortunate that in the role that I have at NC State, it is my job to serve certainly our partners all across the state, but fortunately a lot of that has taken me here to the coast. And so what I wanted to share with you for the challenge that I will focus on in the coastal context, but this is not just a coastal problem. And you heard Abby and Duarte and Anne all talk about people as a part of the work that they've done, whether that's in the Piedmont or in the mountains. Here in the coast, people are just as important. And as we've said, I saw a few folks say it in the chat. We often like to think a great place to visit is a great place to live, and that can be true. And we try and strive to ensure that that is true in the work that we do through tourism extension. But in a lot of our destination communities right now, it might be a great place to visit, but it can be a really hard place to live. And the Outer Banks of North Carolina is one of those places. And the work that I've done out here, working very closely with many of our employers, whether they're in the private sector or the public sector, is recognizing that our workforce is one of the greatest assets that we have. In fact, none of this works. Doesn't matter where you are in North Carolina. It doesn't work if we don't have tourism workforce members. And so a lot of the work that I'm doing, the challenge that I'm helping our tourism partners solve is how do we better support our tourism workforce members? Because when we do that and we make these places that are a great place to visit, also a great place to live, everybody wins. And we don't see outcomes like what you see here on the screen there on the right side. This is a picture I took. This was back in 2021 when I was doing some work here in the Outer Banks. A local small business in Kill Devil Hills had to close because they couldn't hire enough people to keep this restaurant running. And it's one of those places that is a unique, special, wonderful experience of North Carolina. But it all comes down to who can work there, who's going to be there to be able to open, close, keep that dish pit running, keep the food on the table, and extrapolate that out beyond just our restaurants to all of our lodging, to all of our attractions, to all of our transportation, all those pieces that make the experience for the tourist work only work because of people who are working. So, what I am trying to do is to ensure that tourism continues to thrive in our state. We are putting our workforce members first. We're thinking about what do they need, and I'm talking basic needs here, folks. If you go back to your Psychology 101 class that I hope you took at NC State, you might remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the very bottom of that hierarchy, the bottom of that pyramid, are things like shelter, food, safety. In a lot of our communities where tourism is thriving, those can be hard things for our workforce members to find. Housing is very much a priority. Childcare can be a challenge. And these are the folks that we are asking to go out into the world and be the face of North Carolina and welcome those visitors and give them a great experience. But they themselves may be struggling to find a place to live or a safe place to have their kids stay while they are at work. So this is a major challenge. It's something that like I said, is all across the state, but particularly in our coastal communities where we may be limited for housing options, limited by space. Here in Dare County, there's not a lot of places to build additional housing. How are we going to solve that challenge? In the mountains, when Anne was talking about the response to Helene, we've got people driving a long ways to work in Asheville and contribute to that tourism economy. So it really is a challenge that needs more attention. What I have found through the work that I've done thus far is that these workforce members, they're happy to work hard. These people they're busting their butts. They're not usually working one job. They're working two, maybe three jobs to make ends meet. And that can make it really hard for them to engage with local decision makers, elected officials, folks who can provide those resources that they need to thrive. So part of the way that I'm addressing this challenge is by thinking about how do we make sure that their voices, these workforce member voices, are heard in community decision making? How can I help them build the networks that they have amongst their peers? So if they need to find a new job or they have an opportunity at their place of employment and they need to hire somebody, they can reach out to a network to connect with, and also just to have those social ties. Abby highlighted that as such an important part of the micro entrepreneurship experience. It's a really valuable part of everyone's life is to have those social connections. And to make sure that these workforce members are aware of the resources that are available to them. Done a lot of work in places like Dare County, for example, thriving nonprofit scene there. They have lots of places that can help with food insecurity, child care, health care, dental care, but people need to know about those resources. So, the three areas that I'm focusing on right now with this challenge, because there are many, and you've got to draw the line somewhere to, at least to get started with this, are issues around housing, childcare, and career planning. Something I've heard from a lot of our workforce members is, hey, I'm working this frontline job at a hotel right now. It's fine. It's, not something I want to do forever. I need to go know where I can go next. And that's where I can particularly thrive. I'm learning a lot about housing. I'm learning a lot about childcare, but I can really help them with the career planning piece. So in thinking about how to address those three pieces of networking, making their voice heard, and accessing resources, I have helped to establish what I'm hoping is the first of many workforce networks here in the Outer Banks. So the Outer Banks Workforce Network was created to help workforce members here in Currituck, Dare, and Hyde County to address those needs. Making sure that they can build their network, making sure they can connect with local decision makers, accessing the resources they need to thrive. And we do that through networking and celebration meetings. So, we're coming up on Labor Day. That means for our coastal communities, we're getting to the end of peak season. So we're going to have some celebrations for these folks who've been working so hard since Memorial Day. We're working on centralizing the resources that they may want to access around things like housing, childcare, career planning, so they can kind of have a one-stop shop to go and access those resources. And we're creating opportunities to share their stories and solutions. So in November, we will be hosting the Outer Banks Workforce Summit. This will be the first of hopefully an annual series of events where workforce members take the stage and they share their stories and the solutions to the challenges that they face so that they're not just a voice, but a leader in addressing some of these challenges that are making it a bit difficult to live in these tourism destinations. Zach, thank you for dropping the URL for that Outer Banks Workforce Network into the chat. And this is a great place for you to learn a little bit more about that work that we're doing right now. I'm literally in the process of developing these. And these resources and these events. So stay tuned, and you can sign up to learn more about that workforce network at the URL that we have in the chat. So I think we are cruising into our last 10 minutes. High five, Duarte, Abby, and Ann for us getting through that in the time that we had. Chandler, I think I'm going to turn it over to you before or after questions.
After questions. So we will, if you have questions for our speakers, please feel free to put them in the Q&A feature. We do have one from Victoria Pender. As a meeting planner, I would love to know how we can support these challenges. Are there ways those of us who are bringing people into the state can help the local communities we visit?
Great question, Victoria. Thank you so much. I will talk for a minute to kind of give Ann, Duarte, and Abby a minute to think on how they might respond. Ann, I'll probably start with you to highlight some of our tourism extension resources or others that you may know. I would say the first thing when we're thinking about events, and by the way, shout out to all of you who dropped some really amazing events in the chat. We do have a very robust list of them here in North Carolina that are very unique. I think, in thinking about finding those truly locally based entrepreneurs, Duarte, you may want to share the P1T URL for that so folks know where to find those folks. I think from someone who attends a lot of events, both in a business and a leisure context, finding those ways that really make that event truly unique to the space can help. And a lot of that comes from whether that's your local artists, your local farmers, your local chefs and food providers. Those are just some real simple ways to start. But Anne, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I would just say, I mean, I know if you're meeting planning, you're probably working with the local destination organization or tourism development authority and telling them that you're interested in helping with some of that, because they might be able to direct you to some of those local organizations that you can support. But yeah, echoing what Whitney says with the local businesses. Duarte?
Yeah, I would say that just always thinking about, in the case of events, to have that hyper local connection, and just as somebody that belongs to a community, having a sense of the local artists or local very small service providers, and just kind of chasing that idea with commitment, because it'll benefit your business model and bottom line as well. Because when you curate a really special, unique local set of suppliers of some component of the event will end up being unreplicable by the competition. I would give an example also, like on a perhaps even more complicated setting, which is sports facilities for hosting tournaments. An alumni of our online master's program was, maybe still is, the manager of the Goldsboro soccer park. And I went there because my daughter played soccer in tournaments there, and I was delighted. I was actually, during that semester, had that student in my class, and I noticed that they had, in the roundabout, they had space for food trucks. They also had a little vending space, but those places are always so cafeteria-like. But, in that multi-million-dollar facility, they had a space to put local food trucks to sell interesting, local, authentic food. And it made an experience of a parent in a soccer tournament so much better than having to go to the queue in the concession stand of another identical facility. So.
Yeah, good call on bringing sports into that, Duarte. Sport events and tourism is a huge strategy for a lot of our rural communities, and that's a great place to tap in some of those unique experiences. Chandler, do you want to call out any other questions or have?
Yes, we do have a few more that have come through. I'm actually going to combine two of them because I think we can answer both. But Jenna Bailey and Mary Grace Fields are talking about how they can connect for mentoring and business development and some marketing strategies maybe smaller destinations can use in this huge tourism market for them to stand out.
Yeah, fabulous questions. And let's make sure we get your email in the chat too, because folks, you are in the presence of North Carolina State's Tourism Extension Associate, Ann Savage, and that is her job, is to be that resource to help our destination marketers and managers really think about where to access those resources. Some that come to mind are like the Southeast Tourism Society. They are a great networking space, first of all, but they also have some educational opportunities through their marketing college, which may be worth exploring. And are there any other ones that you want to highlight?
I was just going to say, I saw Leslie in the chat talk about the First Impressions program that we did there in Elkin. And that could be an opportunity for smaller communities where we pair you up with a similar sized community that's not close, but not too far. And they kind of give their reflection on those first impressions of a secret shopper. And that can help you when you're thinking about what to market, like what drew that person in, what they thought was really special, and also opportunities for development in the community. So feel free to send me an email if you're interested in that. And we can think a little bit more about how to highlight those businesses or communities.
Chandler, you think we got all the points on that one?
Yes, I think so. No, thank you so much. We do have a couple more questions, but I'm going to close us really quick. And if we have a couple of minutes, maybe we can get to those. If not, then we will follow up via email on those questions so that we can make sure we get answers to you all. But I just wanted to thank everybody for being on today. My name is Chandler. I serve as the Director of Engagement for Alumni Engagement and Annual Giving here at NC State. It has been my pleasure to help bring this webinar and collaborate with our College of Natural Resources colleagues to bring this webinar to you all today. Again, I just want to say a big, big thank you to Whitney, Ann, Duarte, Abby, and Ann, I said Ann twice. We're thanking you twice, Ann, who shared your expertise today. And of course, thank you all for being on and taking the time to be with us to learn more about this topic. The chat has been wonderful. And so thank you for the engagement. And I hope I say this correctly, Abir. I'm a huge Formula One fan, so I'm all in for the recommendation on bringing F1 to North Carolina. So if we need to start a movement, let me know. But before we close, just want to highlight a few ways you, as our alumni partner and friends, can continue to engage with us after this. Stay connected, follow us on social media, email Ann, email Tourism Extension, be connected within your respective areas. As they mentioned, we are in all counties of North Carolina, so continue to connect to your local extension agents as well as to the campus itself. You can join us by spreading the word in your communities about how you can support and the resources that are available through your local extension office. It's truly in our backyard, so feel free to use those resources. You can get involved with our team, collaborating and supporting our students, whether that's through research or mentoring or things of that nature. Get involved with us. And then, of course, supporting the future of this work through gifts and connections that helps us strengthen the research that we're doing and to help tourism in North Carolina So we'll be sending a follow-up email with today's presentation. We did record it with some contact information as well as links so you can easily stay engaged. And as promised, I have the 2 winners of today's prize packs. So if Brenda Porter Rockwell and Billy Gray will stay on afterwards, I would love to connect with you to get your information so that we can get those prize packs out to you. Just wanted to note that our next webinar topic will be the history of howling cow. And that will be on October 14th. We all know howling cow is also another topic that's very popular with NC State alumni and friends. So that invitation will be coming soon. But if you have topics that you are interested in, please feel free to reach out to me and let us know what you're interested in hearing about. We're here to highlight the work that NC State is doing to all of our alumni and friends. And so we want to hear about topics that you would like to hear about. But on behalf of NC State and the College of Natural Resources, thank you again for your time and support today. Together, we can ensure North Carolina remains that top destination for visitors while also creating resilient, thriving communities across our state. And we hope y'all have a wonderful afternoon. And as always, go Pack!